Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talking Logistics, where we have conversations with thought leaders and newsmakers in the supply chain logistics industry. It's my great pleasure to welcome today's program, Geoff Turner, who's founder and CEO of Choptank, and Prasad Gollapalli, who is founder and CEO of Trucker Tools. And today we're going to talk about how a true digital experience helps brokers win the capacity battle and win and build carrier loyalty. So, the Summer Olympics are in the process of, wrapping up this week, and there have been many great, competitions for gold. But when it comes to securing reliable and repeatable, freight capacity, that battle certainly, continues in the market today. So what are some of the biggest challenges brokers face in winning that battle? How can technology help build carrier loyalty? And how do you measure success? Well, those are some of the main questions we're going to address in today's episode. And it's great to have Geoff and Prasad on the program to share their insights and advice on this topic. So Geoff, Prasad, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Adrian. Glad to be here.
Always great to be here, Adrian.
So Geoff, you've been on the program before. We were commenting right before we went on the air that it was probably over a year ago, but it might as well have been a decade ago with so much that has changed over the past, 18 months or so. But before we dive into the topic, just to remind folks, a little bit about Choptank, why don't we start there? Just briefly tell us a little bit about the company and your operations.
Yeah, thanks, Adrian. Appreciate that. Appreciate being on. And I do feel like I've probably aged 10 years in 1 year as well, because it's been a challenging year, but I think all of us that have signed up for the transportation business are used to the robust nature of the market and how it changes so rapidly. So we're always ready for that opportunity. So yeah, a little bit about Choptank. We're a 20-year-old company. We sort of founded on the fundamentals of perishable freight. We do a lot of food and things like that. About 65% of our business is perishables. So we really distinguished ourselves in the marketplace as being a premier provider of refrigerated transportation. And we have a wide, diverse nature of customers, from Fortune 500 companies down to smaller regional bakeries and seafood processors and things like that. So we have a wide variety of customers in a wide variety of food industries. So that's a little bit about us. We've always sort of founded the business on technology. That's always been sort of our thing. I was joking with somebody the other day that when we first got going, I wrote our own database in Microsoft Access. And if everybody remembers Microsoft Access, as soon as you got about 3 or 4 people in there, it started crashing and dying. And I was like, that was the point I decided I needed something a little better than that. But we've always just fundamentally thought of technology as a differentiator, and we continue that push today. So I'm glad to be here.
Great overview, and certainly technology. We're going to talk a little bit about that in today's episode. But we kind of titled the episode about winning the capacity battle. So before we talk about how to win it, let's characterize it a little bit. I mean, how would you characterize the capacity battle today, and what are some of the biggest challenges in winning that battle?
Yeah, I mean, right now with the way that the freight market is, it's so imbalanced right now. There's so many trucks out of networks, and where, most of our carriers are really just looking for that network density to get back so that they really can run their trucks in sort of, common lanes and things like that. And with the country being sort of off and on and all over the place right now, it's produced a lot of challenges in that area. So we do our best to try to find carriers that want to run particular lanes and give them that quality freight. And that's always important to them, because as we all know, the challenges on those carriers, especially the small to mid-sized guys right now, between the driver shortage, between insurance costs and all that stuff right now, is just really putting a lot of pressure on them. So the better we can provide quality freight to them and deliver that freight to them through an efficient channel makes their life a lot easier. And that, at the end of the day, that's sort of what gets you that gold medal of being able to provide them really good quality freight that really helps build out their network density.
Yeah, no, I think I hear that over and over again, and that is, I think, key to building that, carrier carrier loyalty, which brings me to my next question. And Prasad, to bring you into the conversation now, certainly, I think, Geoff got some of the thoughts started there. Building carrier loyalty is certainly an important part of winning, that capacity battle. I mean, how does technology, help brokers build that carrier loyalty?
Adrian, first of all, thanks for the opportunity to be here. What Geoff said earlier is absolutely right. Right, carriers are looking at that density. Carriers are looking at that repeat business from brokers, and in many ways, they're looking for that relationship. One of the misconception in today's market is technology going to replace my job? Right. I mean, or is technology going to fully automate it? We have seen that thought go by a couple of years back when everybody thought how we're going to digitize the whole thing and automate the whole thing. That didn't go anywhere, right? Because this is an industry where a lot of relationships are built, right? What technology can do in a market like this is two ways. One is help brokers like Choptank build and nurture those relationships with their carriers, right? And get more out of these carriers. So, typically most of the brokers today, when they get a carrier in their network, they typically get a load out of that carrier, and that carrier never shows up again. With technology, brokers and carriers can build on that relationship, and more importantly, brokers can get more loads out of that carrier and keep that carrier density higher and carrier utilization higher, right? So that is expanding and nurturing your existing relationships with your own carriers. That is a paramount need for the market today. Because that, people talk about dark capacity, people talk about one load wonders, carrier being dropped off. All of those issues are solved with technology. And we've had this relationship with Choptank. We have seen them be the trailblazers of our products. And, they've used visibility and digital rate matching very, I would say in many ways on the forefront and creatively to really get that density higher. Right? And the second important value with technology is typically most of the carriers that brokers find, they leave their systems very fast, right? Because they're posting in public load boards. Oftentimes when a carrier comes to them, they move a load and then gone because of the carrier lanes not being aligned with the broker's freight, right? With technology, this noise can be eliminated completely. So when brokers find new carriers that they have never used before, but that matching is done based on that carrier lane preferences and the broker's freight, that relationship is primed to grow further than just one load, right? This is the second value that technology can help. The first value is nurturing their existing carrier relationships. The second one is finding right carriers that will stay with the brokers for longer periods of time. This is a huge elimination of noise and inefficiencies in our space. And people talk about automation and all of that. Before even we get to that point, this is it. This is the first point. And most of the brokers that are smart, they're very nimble, they're following that. And I'll put that back on Geoff and say, Choptank has done a marvelous job of using technologies like Tokatools and others in that aspect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, great examples there. And I think, in so many cases, you see that there's so much waste and inefficiencies in the transportation industry historically, in so many different forms, whether it's empty miles or the inefficiencies in trying to find the right partners or the alignment of networks between, what the freight is and what the carrier networks are. So a lot of wasted time, a lot of wasted labor, and so forth. So certainly that's where, to your point, Prasad, technology comes in to help in a more smarter, more automated, more intelligent way, make those connections and streamline, those processes that are core to this industry. Geoff, Prasad kind of highlighted maybe some of the ways that you've are utilizing this, but maybe you can share a little bit more details on how you're leveraging technology to win that capacity battle and win carrier loyalty. I mean, in what areas has technology made the greatest impact at Choptank?
Yeah, I mean, and Prasad's spot on there. In the market we're in now, it also has sort of exemplified, these carriers sort of getting out of their market because they're just, the spot market is so crazy right now. So there's a lot of carriers who are getting out of sort of their common lanes, and using a tool like Trucker Tools has really helped the carriers when they get to an area or a region that they don't typically run. The algorithms and things built into Trucker Tools, are helping them select really good freight to put into their network. And it's not just, to Prasad's point, it's not just going on a load board and finding some random load. It's more in depth than that to say, hey, you're going to be 5 miles from this one. It really automatically helps that carrier find the best match for them, and not necessarily, any load that's in Chicago. Well, we all know that that's a big difference between one side of Chicago and another. So the smarter the technology could be to help those carriers get the best load closest to them, help keep their wheels turning, is really important. So that's sort of like the first piece of it. And then the second piece I'd say is that, having carriers use the Trucker Tools app and technology has really just streamlined the process for the carriers, so to have a common platform that they can go into. They can, obviously we can get the visibility out of, get the tracking, but then also the tools on the side for the carrier, again, that matching of good freight for them, and the availability of rest stops and all that stuff that's built in that app. So it's almost to the point it's like a carrier marketplace for them. They can sort of live in that app, and it's not sort of Prasad described as a one-hit wonder on the carrier side. I would say the same thing for the carriers. We see that a lot where they say, hey, I don't want 10 apps on there from 10 different brokers, because once I'm done with that one load, I got this app here. And so trying to keep them in one mechanism makes their life a lot easier. And that's what we're all about, getting it easier for them, getting it sort of it's more of a productivity tool for them. And that's the important thing. They can put their documents in there, they can send their documents to us, they can let us know all that information. So it's more about just making it more productivity for the carrier, making their life easier, and making, like a broker like us to be sort of a preferred broker and easy to do business with. And at the end of the day, that's what's important.
It's interesting, Geoff. I mean, based on your response, and even just picking up on what Prasad had said, a lot of what you talked about in response to my question was in terms of the value that the carriers get out of this. So it sounds like, a lot of this is really about being a win-win proposition, right? So yes, you're getting value because you're getting value from the standpoint of being able to, secure capacity quickly on behalf of your customers. You're able to get that visibility. You're able to, communicate electronically with the carriers, but you really emphasize the opportunity to leverage, this technology platform with your carriers to make their life easier, right? So if correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like, part of the way you look at the value proposition is, hey, how can we make life easier for our carrier partners and make them more productive, more efficient? And if we help them do that with technology, we're going to be a preferred partner for them.
Exactly. And being able to, give them access to really high quality freight within that app, to me is just a win-win for both the carrier and the broker, because we find, and no broker would be much different, the more we can keep a carrier in our network, we have less claims, we have less all those issues, late deliveries, all that stuff. So the more we can keep the carriers in that network, it just provides a more seamless experience for everybody involved, customer, carrier, and our company.
Great.
Adrian, if I can just add one thing that Geoff said, that's truly the broker of choice. Everybody's talking about today, what's the broker of choice? I would put broker of choice ahead of all this. People are talking about, is the digital broker important, right? I would say even before that, a broker of choice is even more important, because a broker of choice is one who would bring carriers in big numbers and their commitment to the shippers, right? I think we heard the word shipper of choice. unless you can combine a shipper of choice with a broker of choice, the supply chain is not fully optimized in my viewpoint.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's a great point. I mean, we often talk about, and I talk with a lot of shippers, and obviously they're always talking about how can we become a better shipper of choice. But the similar, focus is also true on the broker side as well. Staying with you, Prasad. I mean, we've been talking about technology, and oftentimes, companies, kind of wrestle. They ultimately get to a point where it's like, do we build or do we buy, or do we build or do we subscribe to a technology platform? I mean, what are some important questions or factors that companies should consider when making that decision?
I like the words you used, build versus buy, or buy versus subscribe, right? I think the technology, all the technology that a broker or a 3PL uses, right, falls into two categories. One is in-house, that optimizes their own in-house processes, right, and their people, to make their people's work efficient. Then there are tools that are outside their company that connect them with their shippers, with their carriers, right? These two categories are important to be identified. So the internal technology that helps their team, with their processes, right? Technically or typically, you can either buy off the shelf, but build on it, because that's your secret sauce, right? Whether it's a rating engine that you can come up with, how do you keep your processes? That's unique to a brokerage. Then when you look outside, this is where software becomes more of a partnership. So it's mostly, even I think we've gone beyond buy aspect at this point. It's a subscribe. And the reason I would say that is we are hearing more of, when we talk to customers like Choptank, right? Many years ago, Geoff has said, hey, we want you to be a partner, not a vendor for us. Now, recently in the last 6 months, we are hearing more of our potential customers, existing customers asking, hey, we want to be partners. We don't want to be a customer, right? We don't want you to be a vendor. So what that entitles is, that particular software has to be built both by the broker and the vendor together as partners. And certain aspects are absolutely important. A vendor partner should be very nimble for a broker, right? I mean, if a broker's looking at new technology, improving their processes and everything, a vendor partner should be as fast as they can, right? That's area expertise, right? The second one is, it should not be a software by itself. Because when you connect your software, a broker, with a carrier base, if I come and say, hey, here is software, you go and find your own carriers, then there is no value for a broker, right? It has to come with a network, right? That's the reason why this software is being subscribed to, not bought, right, or built. And that carrier, so then that can be extended into what is the value. We've had customers like Geoff ask us, what is the value you're creating to my carriers? That's an ownership that a broker puts on that software. Although you're subscribing to that software, you have to feel like you own that software, right? And there are two other parts that are very, very important when you pick these vendors. One, it's not a software alone. Customer success support are absolutely must. Because in today's world, when a broker has an employee using a particular software and that software has a limitation or a break or something happens with it, or they don't know how to use it, if they don't feel like there's somebody on the other end of the phone who can help them, that load goes by. And that's every time that happens, it's almost like, you just missed few seconds in a game, and those few seconds could make the difference. And you mentioned about Olympics, right? We don't even have to talk about minutes. A couple of seconds, fraction of seconds could make difference in many ways. So it's absolutely important to have these checkpoints hit when you pick a vendor.
A lot of great points there. I recently talked, and I've been a big proponent for years now of network-based technology, platforms. And if you remember, many years ago, I think it was over a decade ago, that Mark Andreessen, said that software is eating the world. And I commented on another industry development that happened, and I said, I think it's time to update that. It's not just software that's eating the world; it's software and networks that are eating the world in the transportation and logistics space. And I think you kind of highlighted the importance of the network. That it's not just about software, it's also that network and the network effects that creates in terms of bringing together this community of carriers, this community of brokers, all the data that goes through, flows through that platform, so on and so forth. So I think that those are some really good, points, as well as, hey, the characterization that you've got some of the internal applications that you may have a different decision point around versus these more collaborative external solutions, platforms, where you need to communicate and collaborate with, a lot of external parties, and in this case, carriers and shippers. So Geoff, back to you. Ultimately, you invest in technology, you subscribe to technology. As part of this overall digital transformation journey, I mean, how do you measure the success of it? I mean, what are some of the key metrics you look at?
Yeah, I mean, that's been to me, that's been sort of the fun evolution of our partnership and relationship with Trucker Tools is that, when we first started going down this road, a lot of it for us was in this visibility space. There's so many different providers, and it really can be overwhelming, and it even becomes more overwhelming from the customer perspective, because the customers are the ones like, they read the trade magazine or go see somebody and they want to do a particular technology. And that was always our struggle point as an organization, was we boiled it back down to what's right for our carriers. And, when you started looking at, we were asking a carrier to do a load today, and they'd have to use one platform for visibility. And then that same carrier might do a load tomorrow and use a different technology. And again, from a carrier experience, that was just really, really lousy to expect that from our carriers, because at the end of the day, that we got to make their life. I mean, there's not enough respect out there for all they're going through. And then, by the way, we want you to learn these 3 other technologies. That's crazy talk. So, when we started down this road, it was like, okay, how can we have one seamless solution for our carriers that our customers are going to be happy with, because we can feed them the right data, and it doesn't matter what the mechanism on how we collect it. It's just a matter of being able to provide that data. So that's sort of the road we started down, of just saying, hey, Mr. Customer, we're going to send you the Latline data. Why do you care where it comes from, right? So that was our first transformation, to say, okay, carriers, we're only going to use one technology, and we want to make your life easier. So that was sort of our first start on that. But then as we started measuring, our adaptation from it, that's just been a crazy rocket ship, in the sense that, when we initially started doing the tracking, like everybody, it was 50-60% we could get carriers to do. Now we're never not above 90 in any given week, and a couple weeks ago it was like 98%. So we've seen just excellent adaptation on the product, and it's like anything, Adrian. It's like, initially there's resistance from the carriers, but now that they're hearing all that, now they're and our folks do a really good job of trying to educate the carriers, because we do get some resistance, but it's, why do we need to do this? Well, here's why you need to do it. We can give you access to really high quality freight by doing this. Our customers expect it. Our customers want to know it. So it's not sold as an intrusion on your lifestyle. It's sold as, hey, by doing this and using a technology like Trucker Tools, we're able to provide you really high quality freight and more, right? And that's sort of the win for our carrier base. So, when we looked at it, that's sort of where we started on how many carriers we were able to get on the platform. And now it's rare now that I hear a discussion of a carrier doesn't know what we're doing. That doesn't happen anymore. It's either, yeah, I can do the Trucker Tools, or yeah, I've done that before, or whatever, but it's not this whole education process. So to me, and I think Prasad used to say this all the time, it's just starting to be sort of table stakes in the industry. It is what it is, and it's that's getting to be more helpful. So that's sort of how we approach it from a measurement standpoint.
Yeah, well, and what about from the, you mentioned that, early on, perhaps, or maybe even still today, some shippers may say, yeah, we want you to use XYZ, technology platform. And I think you're right. I mean, I think at the end of the day, what they want is not so much, which compliance with a certain technology platform. They want the data, they want the information, they want that visibility. And as you said, does it really matter how it gets to you as long as we get to you, we meet your information needs? Are you seeing them becoming more open to that, to say, hey, maybe we don't need to dictate the platform. If you can give us the information that's timely, accurate, complete, and so forth, however you can do it, that's fine with us?
Yeah, you're right. There's still some pockets of resistance we see in that, but most of the time, especially if we can get to the decision makers, especially from the tech side folks don't really care, that because a lot of it's going into some TMS or something somewhere. So as long as the data flows in, it is. So it's about having those conversations of talking about, okay, here's how we want to do it, because at the end of the day, it's one of those things that from a brokerage standpoint, we're not able to technically charge for that service, right? It's just sort of the norm, right? So on our end, we have to make it as efficient as we possibly can, because we want to make sure our folks aren't bogged down with that. So we take it to the customer and say, hey, we can provide you this data. Here's our API. Here's the pipe. Here's how to get it. And it's right here. You don't need to go down all these mechanisms. And at the end of the day, Adrian, it's about, we're good at what we do, right? So let us deliver this data to you. A real funny quick story. I remember, and my memory is getting really bad here, but five or so years ago, and Prasad, how long have you been around?
We've been around for more than 7-8 years on the visibility.
It was early on in that process, and I remember we were on the Trucker Tools platform, and we were, tracking everything, and we had a customer come to us and say, hey, we want tracking data. Like, here you go, here's the pipe. I mean, it was like they didn't even realize we were doing it, and again, they had heard or they were just impressed that that brokerages were that far out in front on using this kind of technology, because it was always sort of the dirty word in the industry that brokers couldn't track freight. That was sort of, brokers have to do it manually and all that. And tools like Trucker Tools have helped revolutionize that from a standpoint of being able to supply that data to our customers.
Yeah, no, great example. Well, as a way to wrap up, Geoff and then Prasad, you can add your thoughts as well. I mean, what do you see as the biggest trend or factor that will continue to transform the industry in the months and years ahead?
So as a wrap up, right? Everything that has happened so far in these years has set us up for the next revolution, whether it's visibility. Now we're talking about digital freight matching, but all of this is leading us into the next wave, which is the data revolution. Literally, the purpose of this data revolution is, how do we start taking the efficiencies to that next level? Now, whether we started off tracking a truck from pickup to delivery, now we're feeding loads even before they become based on their lane preference, and we're putting 2-3 loads at a time in front of them. So from this point onwards, we'll be leading into the next wave where we'll have enough data to start predicting, hey, this is the rates if you wait for 4 weeks. This is how much you will be charged if you want to move a load, versus if you move on this day, this is how much you will be charged, right? These are all coming down the pipe. So, I mean, in many ways, every year that goes by, I think we're running, 5-6 years of innovation to really put transportation on, fast pace here, really fast pace. If I want to look back 5 years from now or 10 years from now, we'll be really, really more efficient. People and transportation, as it has always been, is really seamless to the end users, but with a lot of efficiencies, in my viewpoint.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a key word there, efficiency. I think when you look at all of the factors, whether it's continued growth of global trade, obviously e-commerce, and so many other things. I mean, the only way that we're going to be able to sustain that growth and meet these market demands is, you can't add a ton of labor, right? There just isn't enough labor. Capital investments, you can't add, capital warehouses and trucks and so forth at a fast enough pace to keep up with it. So really the key thing here is driving efficiencies, because there is, as we talked about earlier, there is so much waste. So that's really the low hanging fruit, is how do we leverage technology to really eliminate some of that waste and inefficiency. And that's going to go a long way to helping to keep up with this rapid pace of growth that we're seeing in the industry. Geoff, final thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, I mean, if you shut Prasad and I in a room for a couple of days, we could talk about this for 24 hours or 48 hours straight. Yeah, this is just good stuff. I mean, this is sort of the direction, and this is what excites me. And it always is fun in the sense that most brokerages are some of the most progressive, freight movement people around. We look at data really close and really value it. And if we can get more into sort of that, predictive freight analytics of, one of the things we always looked at for years is how many loads are posted, in a lane or something like that. But that's not really a true measurement, because, that same load might be posted 5 times by 5 different brokers or whatever. But now that we can have real data of real trucks that are actually moving in certain directions, to me is really exciting, because we can start to be out in front of some of that, just looking at the way that freight patterns and way it's moving, to really be able to say, holy cow, we're starting to see a lot of trucks move into the Northeast. What's that telling us, right? And and Prasad mentioned this earlier, this industry is all about speed, and just those incremental of picking up trends 4, 6, 8, 12 hours in advance is huge. It's huge for our carriers, it's huge for our customers, and it's huge for our people who are, the most important part of the equation, trying to make the freight move. So that's one piece of it. The other piece for us is that we're excited about is having all this visibility data now is really helping us have really constructive conversations with our customers on dwell time and bad receivers and bad warehouses. Some of the meetings we've had recently, when we can put real data in front of them and say, this warehouse in Toledo is horrible, and it's eye-opening to the customers, and it really helps them understand what's wrong in their network, because at the end of the day, they talk about being shipper of choice. Well, now we can provide them really good data to say, you've got to fix that warehouse, or we're not going to go there, or 2, don't complain when my rate is $1 more a mile on that lane, because we have to sit there. So all this data is just really helping to drive really constructive conversations with our customers. And to me, that's the exciting part about it. And to Prasad's point, I think we're just getting going.
Yes, no, I agree with everything you said. Certainly, becoming more predictive, becoming more proactive versus reactive. Going back to the Olympic analogy, Prasad said, the Olympics, fractions of a second, make a difference.
Huge.
And to your point, Geoff, having hours of advanced visibility or even days of advanced visibility and knowledge, just gives you so much more opportunity to, identify those opportunities and keep those trucks moving and, meet the expectations of the market. Well, Geoff, Prasad, as always, we could talk for hours on this topic, but I appreciate both of you making the time to, share your insights and advice. And I think we got a good, you provide some great food for thought for our audience. So again, thank you.
Very good. Appreciate being able to be here.
Thanks for the opportunity.
I want to thank those of you that joined us. If you're watching this episode on demand, either at the Trucker Tools website or on Talking Logistics, and you've got a question or a comment for Geoff or Prasad, you can post it there, and I'm sure they'll be more than happy to respond via that medium. Again, thank you for joining us, and look forward to seeing you in a future episode of Talking Logistics. Have a great day.